are all good.
All right,
All
perfect.
righty.
So, Al, welcome to the Whole Lotta Bogeys podcast. Thanks for hopping on today and joining us, talking a little bit about your brand, what you do, and what you bring to the golf game.
Yeah, super excited.
Yeah,
super
we're
excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Fire away.
Absolutely.
Well, why don't we start off with you just introducing yourself, talking a little bit about NCW Putters and the 3DP stuff that you do, and just your brand in general.
Sure. So National Custom Works is kind of you guys are pretty young, so I don't even know if you remember Scratch Golf. NCW is basically the reincarnation of Scratch. It's something that Ari Techner had started a while back, and Patrick Boyd was involved in, and I got involved quite a bit later in the game. I've been with them for about 3 years. It's kind of a funny story how we met. Like, Ari just found me on the internet. We were like on some WRX thread one day, and just shot me a note. He's like, "Hey, what you're doing looks really cool. Like, let's talk." Next thing you know, we're business partners, and years go by, and it's funny how time flies. But National Custom is all about. I mean, it's the middle name, right? It's all about custom. We make irons and wedges and putters primarily. We also make persimmon woods with tad more. But it's all about custom stuff. It's all about having something absolutely made for you, be it irons or wedges or a putter. It's being able to order something that's absolutely just like a tour van would make for a touring pro, like to the exact spec, every possible, every detail, like you name it, we can make it, and that's just what's cool about it. I also have a side brand, 3DP Design, which is all about accessories and stuff. And the focus is on 3D printed stuff, laser milled stuff, just trying to make something cool and different. And all the putters are like cross-branded, NCW and 3DP. And it's kind of like a sister brand. Like Patrick has BB&F with his Ferrule business.
Yep, Boyd Blade, Ferrule.
Exactly. We're all the same group of guys, just a few different brands doing different stuff.
Yeah, which is awesome. I love the incorporation of the ferrules on your divot tools from the accessory brand and everything.
Yeah, those are sweet.
It's awesome. And I saw the recent ones where you can stab them into the green as a ball marker. I think you could interchange them as well. I thought that was genius.
Yeah, that's
Thank
really
you.
Cool.
The very first ferrule tools we made were bonded in place, like you would bond it on a golf club. Yeah. And then not long after that, I had the idea of making them interchangeable, because there's first off, huge shout out to Patrick and his Ferrule business. Like, he's crushing it, and the creativity and where he's taken that business is so far beyond what I had ever imagined you could take a Ferrule business to.
For sure. Right.
But he has so many clients who collect and just have huge surplus ferrules on hand. And I thought, not only would people like to have a divot tool that has a ferrule on it, they would really love to be able to change the ferrule on it, and use all these different ferrules they have to make that one tool 20 different tools. And so my first idea was actually to use magnets in, and to just have it pull apart with magnets. And they were really cool, and they're really fun to play with. But they weren't quite rigid enough. So when you'd go to fix a divot, you'd stick it in the ground, it would kind of bend. And so what I switched over to screws. And so now you can just unscrew them to take them apart, to take the ferrule off and put a different one on.
Oh, yeah, nice. That's awesome. I saw the thread technique and everything. And one other thing about the Boyd Blade and Ferrule, that Instagram page has to be one of the coolest, most satisfying ones to scroll, with all those different colors and different designs they do on the ferrules. It's crazy. Right.
Absolutely amazing. When I first met Patrick 3 or 4 years ago, I saw this ferrule business he had going, and I was like, that's cool, but how do you grow that? How do you scale that? And years later, my mind has been blown by what he's done with that business. It's amazing.
For sure.
It's incredible.
Speaking of scale and growing a business, I'm going to show you a picture real quick. I hope you can see it well. And I just want you to tell me what it is exactly, because I think we know what it is, but I want you to talk a little bit about it.
Oh, wow. That's my gamer.
Yep. That's it's going to be also your first ever Instagram post on the page, going back to 2019. And we were just curious, just looking at the progression in how you've been making your products, the different materials, paints, finishes, and everything. Like, how do you see the next 5 years going if that's how the last 4 have gone?
That's a wonderful question to answer. The leap off of the cliff into 3D printing putters, it was like, a good 4 or 5 years ago. I'd actually started out milling putters, and I'm not a machinist. So I started out designing putters and then working with a machinist and outsourcing the milling. And, it was an interesting learning process. It was challenging. There's a lot more limitations in making a milled putter than most people understand. But I was at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas, and I don't even remember what year, where I first saw and learned about 3D printing in steel. Like, I was aware of 3D printing in plastic before that, but then when I saw a putter or a printer that could print in metal, I was just blown away. I was like, oh my God, I can't imagine what kind of putter I could make with that. And so, like, the little hamster just started running, and I just couldn't get the idea out of my head.
That light bulb went off.
All right.
Yeah, and so I just sat down one day and I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to design and make a really cool 3D printed putter that's going to be better than anything that you could make with a mill. And it was actually a lot flatter learning curve than I expected. It took a long time to figure out, a lot of trial and error, a lot of repetition, a lot of iterations to sort of learn how to do it right. And over time, I really did. I mean, the interesting thing is that 3D printing in metal, the technology is moving really fast. There's new printers coming to market, new technologies, and each one of these new approaches brings different freedoms, different limitations, different features, different pros and cons. So that putter that you just showed that picture of, that's actually my gamer. It's still in my bag.
That's awesome.
That's sweet.
It got kicked out for a little while. I made it. There was a shape that I was in love with, like a ping zing style, and I made a putter. It was just so beautiful, and I had to make it. And I put this gorgeous face in it, and it was so pretty. I put it in the bag, and I put a new shaft in it that's kind of heavy, and it just didn't click for me. Like it stuck in the bag for like a summer, and then I just went right back to my old gamer.
Yeah, that's one thing I kind of wanted to. Sorry, not to cut you off.
So what's changed since I made that putter is that the cost. How do I say this? The cost of some technologies, some printer technologies, has shifted, and we've actually shifted what materials we're printing in mostly. I've learned a lot about how to push the limits of what I can do with 3D printing a putter. So I mentioned that I wanted to use 3D printing to make a better putter than what you can make with a mill. Part of that is in the design freedom that you have to use different complex internal geometries to shift weight around, to move weight from the center out to the ends, to the toe and the heel of a putter, to increase MOI, to increase forgiveness. Do that, the more precarious the sound and feel becomes. Like, it's really easy to just grab all the weight and shove it all the way to the toe and the heel. I end up making a putter that sounds and feels like garbage. Sort of learn the hard way what the limits are, what the tolerances are, what you can get away with and what you can't. That putter actually feels great. That's why it's been in my bag for 3 years. But other putters along the way, like what the thresholds are, the tolerances are, how to use different and newer printing technologies to make different looking putters, different sounding putters, different feeling putters. And now we're mostly printing in 316 stainless, which doesn't patina, and it's got a nice smoother surface finish. So that putter is pretty raw. It's got a rough tan color. We're now printing in more monometallic stainless, which is a gray color. And when you polish it up, it looks pretty sharp.
Yeah, for sure. Out of curiosity, going back to the putter that you said you swapped out with your gamer, it was more of a ping zing design. What sound are you going for in your personal gamer? Is it more of that high pitched like ting you'd get from like a traditional older ping putter, or would it be more of like a softer, more heavier mill, like not hearing it as much?
The latter. This is a total personal preference thing. I like a deeper, softer sound. Not mushy like a plastic insert.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the look of a skinny blade, but I like the sound of a deep mallet.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And
Sure.
to get that combination is actually pretty tough.
Yeah. Oh, I can
Especially
imagine.
when you start doing more, envelope pushing stuff like moving weight around internally. The more mass you have right behind the center of percussion, like right behind the ball, the more mass you have right there, the better the putter is going to sound and feel. But the worse the MOI. So that's the design.
Give and take.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you put a different putter that you made in your bag for like a summer, ended up switching it out and going back to Old Reliable. But I was going to ask, do you struggle, like, cause you make all these awesome putters, do you struggle? Like you make one and you're like, oh man, I gotta at least play one round with this one, try it out, go to the practice green at least, you know what I mean? Cause you see all these awesome putters coming out of the shop all the time,
Thanks. Yeah. A little bit. There are.
Yeah.
So if it's something kind of sort of center, like middle of the road, where I know like exactly what it feels like and what it plays like, I won't spend a lot of time with it. I'll hit it on the carpet and make sure that everything's right with it, but I'm not going to spend hours and hours playing with it. There are occasionally some special builds, something new, something unique, something really creative, something gorgeous. Occasionally there are ones where I'll be like, yeah, I need to take that out to the practice green for an hour. And once a year or so, I fall in love with a putter where I'm like, I think I need to make one of those for myself.
Yeah, right.
But they never seem to stick in the bag. It's like, and the funny thing is, like, that putter's been on my bag for 3 years, and that's the longest any putter's ever been on my bag.
Yeah.
I was a bit of a hoe back in the day. I was
swapping them out, running through putters.
There you go.
It's a different mindset. Once you start making putters and you know that you can make anything for yourself, because anything you make for a client, you can obviously just make another one.
Yeah.
That changes your mindset where it's just like, I don't feel the need to, I'm not searching. Like, I'm not looking for a new putter. I'm not saying, oh, that one's going to be better. That one, like, my gamer's been great to me over the years. And, I don't have that wanderlust with putters anymore. I love making them. I love coming up with like creative new custom projects. There's nothing more satisfying than doing custom work. Like, it's obviously more lucrative to have to do large volume and mass production, but it's so much more satisfying to work with an individual client and make something exactly like that meets and exceeds their dreams of what their putter project could be.
Oh, 100%. And that just goes down to that level of craftsmanship that like all your products have, where like you can tell the time, the selection process on what actually is going to go to market and be sold is like got to be extensive. And that leads right into the next question being, what's your process on testing these putters? Like, is there like a set kind of strategy you use to go through and try them out in each single one? Or is there a mallet test? Is there a blade test? Is it kind of...
I in going through a consultation with a client, I'll often ask, like, what kind of feel do you like? A lot of it is usually based on what they're currently playing. So if a player is playing an answer style putter, they're used to a certain feel. If they're playing like a TaylorMade Spider or something, they're used to a completely different feel. And I'll ask them, like, what do you like? Most of our clients that come to us at this point have had tons of putters in their careers, in their lifetimes. And they know what they like and what they don't like. They've owned everything. They're willing. They're the guys who are willing to spend a lot of money on something custom. So they kind of know what they want, what they like. And so if you ask them, like, what kind of feel do you like, they can usually give you a pretty solid answer to that. And so I use my experience and knowledge to try to meet that desire. So if they say, I like an answer style, but I really want something that sounds and feels a little different than that, you know, I will pull out something from my bag of tricks to help make that happen, whether it be face grooves or changing the geometry of the putter a little bit, thicknesses of various shapes, surfaces. I can do various things to help make that happen. But when it comes to testing a putter, if sound and feel is something that's particularly important about that project or different about that project, you just got to go outdoors to a practice green, drop some balls and hit them, you know, and just
Oh yeah.
sound. You just experience what it's like to actually hit the putter. And I'll typically bring like a whole bag of putters out to the practice green, and people just look at me like I'm a crazy, you know, freak. That, you know, the guy who shows up with a bag full of nothing but putters. And usually
I'm jealous of that guy.
I was gonna say,
I'm
come on, I
jealous.
think I'm a little jealous over here.
Like,
yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's amazing, and that's how you really feel the difference between different shapes, different sounds, different feels, is when you're comparing directly, immediately, one after the other. There's a huge range of sound and feel, and I always say sound / feel, because the two are so interrelated. You know, if you ever putt with earmuffs on and you couldn't hear anything, they kind of all feel the same.
that's valid.
Yeah.
It's that sound that is what we feel.
Right.
And that feedback, that auditory feedback, that when you hear that high pitch ringing sound, or you hear that tingy click, or that soft thud, like that's feel.
Yeah. Down to personal preference too, right?
Yeah.
Like you said
Oh,
earlier.
totally.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you know, the amount of energy transfer when you hit a putter's only swinging like 5 miles an hour. You know, it's not a driver, right? It's moving like 5 miles an hour, and it's hitting that ball. And the amount of energy transfer from a plastic insert to a steel this steel face, you know, the smash factor isn't moving around a lot. It's not like the face is caving in on a 5 mile an hour impact. It's all about the sound.
Yeah, for sure. So is sound and kind of comfortability the number one thing you'd tell somebody like that amateur golfer that's looking to take it to that next step in their game with their putter? Like, is that what you'd tell them to kind of look for and think of when they're working with you to build something?
Well, the way I describe sound is more like you have to love your putter. If you're going to putt well with anything, you really have to have confidence in it. You have to really like everything about it, the way it looks, the way it sets up, the way it sounds and feels, everything. Like, you need to love your putter. You need to have confidence, because putting is so mental. I mean, so mental.
Incredibly.
And so I don't tell customers to focus on sound. I tell them to make sure that they're ordering something that's going to sound how they like.
For sure. Yeah.
I mean, there can be a lot of variance. Like, sometimes putters can just come out weird, and you have to scrap it and change the design to achieve what you're looking for. But that's like when I'm telling clients like how to take their putting to the next level. I mean, it starts with confidence and knowing that you have everything right. But I recommend to every client to go get fit before they order something. I mean, if you're going to drop, you know, 4 figures on a putter, you might as well go drop $200 to get fit properly first, right? Make sure that you have the right loft, the right lie angle.
Exactly.
And I advise my clients to go deep with putter fitters. Don't just, you know, try to push your fitter to take it beyond the SAM level 1 analysis that just the computer spits out.
Yeah.
Go for the hard things to fit. I mean, loft, lie angle, head shape, toe hang, that's the easy stuff. The computer really does spit that stuff out for you. The tough stuff is head weight, offset, you know, grip, length. Those are a lot tougher. The computer's not going to tell you that. And a lot of that stuff is trial and error, and just helping a player through analyzing how to test different things and come to their own conclusions about what feels good and what performs well.
Right.
Yeah, that's
a deeper level of fitting than you typically will get at a 1 hour kind of session. But
Yeah.
if you really are a competitive player and you're really serious about taking your game to the next level, those are the things that start to really matter.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned there was, like you said, sometimes putters come out weird and you have to like scrap the whole thing and start from scratch or whatever. Has there been a particular one that's been, or a project that you've worked on that's been particularly like difficult, or like something that a client really wanted to produce that has been difficult to work with, where you had to scrap the project and start over, and anything that sticks out to you anyway? No.
So I've had some lucky projects where a putter came out different than I expected it to, and the client loved it.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
So,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Really awesome.
Beautiful.
That's a best case scenario for
Right.
that.
Absolutely. Because you didn't believe. I mean, some of these projects, like the most difficult projects to predict and to deal with are the ones with like exotic materials. So if I'm working with like some Damascus steel, you know, you have to cut that stuff by hand. You have to shape it by hand. You have to grind it flat, and then you have to etch it with acid, and you have to like stain it, and you have to do all it's crazy the stuff that goes into that. And it's also a little bit of a crapshoot, because when you order that stuff, oftentimes it comes in different thicknesses, and so you don't really know. Maybe you're working with a piece of steel that's twice as thick as the steel you're used to working with. How is that going to affect the sound of the putter? You have to find out the hard way.
Exactly.
Sometimes clients order materials you've never worked with. Like, I remember the first time I ever did a putter in Damascus. I mean, it's fundamentally titanium, which I'm used to working with, but I remember it was like way thicker. Most of the titanium I use, like all the colored faces, like all the crazy colors and stuff, that's all titanium. Most of those inserts are actually pretty thin. So the amount of titanium versus steel, it's really quite small. But then working with like a thick chunk of Damascus is like a totally different kind of, like, how is that going to sound? How is that going to feel? What kind of head am I putting that on? Is it going on a mallet or a blade? It makes a big difference. So there's always a little bit of fear working with like new materials and new shapes, especially new shapes. Actually, if a client orders, and this is something that's totally unique to our business, is that I can have a client draw a shape on a napkin, like something no one's ever made before, and I can make it for them. Like that, we do that.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
It is, and it's fun. It's a lot of work. We do charge a healthy price for it because there's a ton of labor involved.
Oh yeah,
But
speaks to your talent too, to be able to do that. That's not easy, to be able to take a project loosely drawn and create it in real life. That's amazing.
And it's fun. But until you make a shape, you don't really know how it's going to feel. You have some ideas based on past shapes you've made, thicknesses of various things, but the way I mean, I'm never going to go like the easy route and say, all right, I'm just going to make this like sort of half-ass, where I'm gonna make it so I know it's gonna sound and feel great. I'm gonna make everything really thick, and I'm gonna sacrifice. I mean, it's gonna be a totally unforgiving, shitty putter, but I'm just gonna make it that way just because it's safe. No. I'd rather make something twice and fail the first time, and push it and because that's the whole point of 3D printing putters, is that you can use this technology to make something better, to push the limits, to do things that you couldn't otherwise do. So there's always that little bit of fear when I take on a project like that maybe it's not going to turn out great the first time. But at this point, I've done so many of them that I've kind of learned the hard way how to avoid the pitfalls, and they always come out pretty good now. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, it's been years since I've had a putter like come out completely unexpected.
So, I mean, you would say probably it's more of the material you're working with, when instead of the design of the putter, it's more of the material.
The way around. I'd say. I mean, with faces, it gets a little weird. But I would say the biggest driver of sound and feel is shape. It's the thicknesses of the surfaces. It's all about resonance, right? So when you hit a golf ball, a shock wave goes through the putter head, and that shock wave sort of resonates, and it's like hitting a tuning fork with something, right? And the thinner and broader the surfaces are that are on the back end of the putter, the more that they vibrate and resonate, and the higher the frequency that they resonate at, the higher the sound. It's about the harmonic frequencies of those surfaces. And so if you ever, like, I'm sure you've hit some putters in your lifetime where you hit it and it just goes ping, and it's just like a tuning fork, you know? Or think of like a putter with a sound slot. The reason they have that higher pitched sound is because they've cut that hole there, and it allows more freedom of vibration on that back flange. It's all about it's all about resonance. And so it's funny, like putters that, like, if you take a putter that doesn't have a shaft on it and you flick the neck, it'll just sing out like a tuning fork. It just rings. And then as soon as you install a shaft on it, it doesn't do that because it's not free to vibrate anymore.
Yeah.
Right. It's all about shapes. And so it's mostly about the thickness of the face and the cavity and the thickness of the flange. If you put, but again, that's not where you want to spend your mass. Like if you think about it from a designer's perspective, you have only so much mass that you are allowed to use, say 350 grams to use a common number. You can put all that mass right in the middle, and the putter's going to sound and feel great, and it's going to have the MOI of a bullseye, right? Or you can stretch all that mass out to the toe and the heel and make a really thin flange, and all of a sudden you've got super high MOI that can crush any, you know, OEM putter, and it's going to sound like a tuning fork. You know, like people are going to hit it and say, "This, I can't. How do you use this? It's junk."
Yeah, right.
And so that's the fundamental design challenge for any designer who's looking to make a forgiving putter. It's like to make anything like that has a reason to exist, right? There's so many, like every time a new putter company comes to market, everybody just says, "Great, that's what the world needed, another answer," right? Because they're all making the same damn putter.
Yeah.
It's totally true. I mean, there are tiny little nuances, and aficionados will look at every little shape and every radius and every thickness and say, well, this one has more contour, but whatever, right? They're all basically the same damn putter. The reason to make one now is to make it better. You know, the reason Cameron was so successful is he took ping shapes that were cast and not very well manufactured in terms of modern technology, and he cut them on a CNC mill and made them super precise and super sharp and really pretty. But they're the same damn shapes, right? He improved them by using better technology to make this a better putter. Fast forward 30 years, we don't need that again, right? Everybody's trying to make the same damn thing. I look at 3D printing and I say, wait, I can make a better version of that with this new technology. At first, I started out trying to make some pretty funky shapes because I didn't want to make the same shape everybody else has been making for 50 years. But nobody wanted it. Everybody wants the same shapes. That's what collectors buy. That's why people buy those things because they're comfortable. They know what it looks like. They know people like it. They know it's accepted. They know that they can sell it in the secondary market. They have expectations for what it's going to sound and feel and play like. All of us boutique putter makers out here, we don't have distribution. You can't roll into Dick's Sporting Goods and say, hey, let me roll an NCW and see what it feels like. But everybody's played an answer, and everybody has an expectation for how it plays, how it feels. And so this is what you make. This is what the market demands. And so every boutique putter maker is out there making the exact same thing. We do it with 3D printing, and we change it up by changing the internal geometry and moving mass around inside. So if you look at, any of our putters with face inserts, you don't see any of this stuff going on because it's all underneath the hood. But if you ever took off the face insert, if you destroyed the putter and ripped it open, you'd find a whole bunch of tungsten. You'd find a whole bunch of tungsten in there and some aluminum.
Yeah.
And ways to completely redistribute the mass of the putter to boost the MOI. It depends on the shape. It depends on the overall head weight. But we're typically boosting MOI 20, 30% or more. On our new one-piece versions, where the face is printed and we mill it flat, you see in the toe and the heel, there's exposed tungsten. We put it, and so even on Cameron putters and a lot of milled putters, you see these circular weights that are screwed into the sole.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's great and everything. It allows them to mill one shape and change the head weight by just putting in different weights. But those weights are not really accretive to MOI, because MOI is in units of grams, centimeters squared. So it's directly related to weight, grams, but it's exponentially related to distance, centimeters squared, right? So if you add 10 grams of weight to a putter, it's going to add 10 points of MOI if you add it right at the center of gravity. For each centimeter away from the center of gravity, it's going up exponentially. So if it's 2 centimeters away, it's 2 squared, it's 4, so it's 40 grams, 40 points. If it's 3 centimeters away, it's 3 squared, it's 90
So
points.
it's just going up so
That's
quickly.
Yeah. So if you can stretch it, so those circular weights in the sole, they're what, like 5 centimeters away from the center?
Yeah.
Okay. So 250 times 10, 25 times 10. So that's 250 MOI points. That's meaningful. But with ours, we literally put, like, the tungsten is sticking out the side of the putter and ground smooth. It's like, you're talking 9 centimeters away. So what's 9 squared? It's 810, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's insane.
That's
So you like, yeah, that's why the highest MOI putters you've ever seen, like, you guys are pretty young. Do you remember about 10 years ago, Matt Every showed up at a PGA Tour event and won with this like 7-inch wide putter? It was huge. It was called like the Black Hawk or something. It was
I do know that. Isn't that putter legitimately like
it's
like
the
that?
USGA
I know
mag
the
foam,
model.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah,
That's
7
that's
inches
crazy.
toe to heel. And that is how you make a super, super forgiving putter, is that you use a really lightweight material like aluminum. You make it as wide as you can, and then you make the toe and the heel entirely tungsten. And that's where all the weight is. And that putter is going to have like an MOI of 10,000 or something, 12,000.
That's nuts.
Huge. And that putter is not going to twist. The problem is that putter is going to feel like trash.
Yeah, I was gonna say like garbage.
Yeah, it's going to be like ting. You're going to have no feel at all with it. That putter's not going to twist. You're going to be able to hit it on line. But he won with that putter, and he went back to a small mallet like the next week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
I think
that's
he
insane.
was probably paid to use the putter.
What a promo he won, right?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Exactly. And I mean, you can't knock that. But
Yeah.
But that's how putter design works. Is that there's this constant trade-off between MOI and feel, and so that's what we do. Is we use 3D printing to be able to make shapes that look like people want to play, feel like people want to play, but then actually have physical improvements compared to what solid milled putters can make.
Right.
Well, speaking on the tour players and everything, would you ever be interested in like sponsoring tour players if a player reached out to you and was like, I'm particularly like probably really into the whole aspect of like the art value of these putters, the integrity and design and all like the physics and everything that goes into it. Would you work with a pro if they approached you?
I would certainly work with any pro that was interested. We don't pay anyone. We don't sponsor anyone.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've had a few pros along the way over the years across the NCW brands that we've made product for. We typically actually charge people like we don't.
Well, they got the money to pay for it.
They got plenty of money.
Exactly.
But we don't pay anyone to play our product.
Yeah.
We're just like, you could interview Ari maybe someday, and he could tell you stories from scratch back in the day and his experiences out on tour. We as partners have decided not to chase that whole bag.
I think your brand and your product kind of speaks for itself too, in the sense of where you don't need to push the envelope and pay these guys to play them. I mean, the product appears phenomenal in all aspects, and you truly know everything about these putters, and the amount we've learned from this is astounding.
I was gonna say, I'm just absorbing some of the information, all the, like, I don't know. It's crazy how much, like you said, that you know about these putters down to the weight distribution. We even talked before, like, that we wanted to kind of almost pick your brain, and you kind of already did it for us about how these putter, like the inside, how everything really works. So yeah, that's really awesome to show. And it shows your passion for this stuff too, because you obviously have to have a huge passion to learn all that.
Yeah, you do. I mean, to step off that cliff and take that leap of faith to go work to be a putter designer, you have to kind of be into it.
For sure.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. In terms of like working with pros, pros are like the least, pros are the people who would benefit the least from what we do. Right, we're making a putter shape that's more forgiving, and pros hit it on the sweet spot more than anyone. Right?
Yeah.
You know, like increased MOI makes a more forgiving putter that twists less on mishits, which really helps amateurs. You know, and the worse putter you are, the more you benefit from that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, if you gave one of these putters to the top putter on tour, it wouldn't be any different. You know, he wouldn't like he wouldn't get any better from it, right? So it's kind of like not our target market in that sense. Though our target market is not high handicappers. It's really like the cognoscenti, the guys who really love custom stuff, the guys who really want something that's made for them, that you know, they've had everything else out there. They know what's available, and they just want something that they've always wanted. You know, like they've always had this itch for some specific thing that no one makes, and they'll call us up and we can make that.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier, like you have to love your putter, right? I mean, it's so important. Putting, I mean, game of golf, putting is incredibly important. You have to love your putter, even when it comes down to looking down at it. And a custom putter is definitely, you know, gonna make you love your putter.
Yeah. And you know, we get great feedback, and that always makes my day when a client sends an email saying like, "Hey, I love this putter. You know, I'm putting lights out with it. My friends are all pissed."
Yeah, no, that's the
there you go, right?
That's all you could ask for, honestly.
Yeah, love getting those emails.
Are return customers a big thing with you? Like guys that just like. Yeah, I felt like that would be a big
like
thing.
Collectors or like just people who just love, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
awesome.
well, I figure after you get one and you start seeing some success with it personally, I'd be like, well, damn, now I need two, so I can have a little bit of an option color wise and with all the different stuff.
With this business is the rate of repeat customers. I was not expecting that at all. We have tons of repeat clients, tons, and we have a handful who have bought quite a few actually. Like my number one client is probably on his 10th putter.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah. And I'd say I have at least a dozen who've bought 3 or more.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys out there who really love golf gear.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
there's
they get that
such a market for it.
You know, I think actually the market for these putters is really shallow. Actually, there's not that many guys out there that want to drop, you know, north of $1,000 for a putter.
For sure.
But it blows my mind how many of those guys there are. I mean, it's not a huge market, but you know, there's guys out there with lots and lots of money. Like our typical client is someone who's like in his 30s to 40s, maybe 50s, probably owns his own business, has been very successful in business, is a very good golfer, has had and tried everything in the business, you know, irons from every top end company, putters from every top end company. They know what they like, they know what they want, and they order from us because they know that they're going to get what they want.
Right.
Which is not always going to be the case with more mass-produced stuff. And a lot of the other custom putter makers, custom iron makers, there really aren't that many custom iron makers, right? There are club fitters who will take mass-produced irons and then bend them for you, swing weight them for you, put a different shaft in it for you. But if you said, no, I want this much camber on my sole and I want this muscle shape, they would just look at you like, well, we don't make that.
Yeah, right.
Ours are ground by hand. And with putters, if you call up, I mean, you guys know all the names. Call up putter maker X and say, hey, I want this shape. And he'll say, well, I don't make that shape.
Yeah,
You say, well, I want this shape, but I want a different neck on it. He'll say, well, I don't make that. Maybe I could weld it. You say, well, I want this shape, but I want this head weight. Say, well, you can put some lead tape on it. They don't do that. So that's what we do. Like we make all of that stuff to spec. And if a client wants something specific, they can order it from us, and then they know they're actually going to get it. And it'll be made for them, and it won't be half-assed. We don't weld. Actually, I'm sure Jeff knows how to weld if somebody needed to weld something, but I don't weld. I don't weld necks on putters. I don't do that. I print it all. I don't have to.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the whole thing. You're pushing the golf game forward, and especially the putter design game forward. And I think that stepping away from just welding necks and stuff like that is kind of like a lot of your premise, like doing something different and getting something better out to the people.
Yeah. Pushing the limit of the technology. Yeah.
I love shitting on weld necks. Because here's what most people don't get is that weld necks are not a good thing. It's actually a cost-saving mechanism for build putter makers. So what they do is so for one thing, to mill a one piece with a big neck on it requires a much bigger billet of steel, so much more waste. Steel is actually a pretty expensive input into building a putter. So if you're milling a putter head out of stainless steel, you're talking like $150 worth of steel. If you're going to mill a one piece with a big old neck on it. So what they do is they just mill the head, just the blade part. Then they mill the neck separately. So there's much less waste. You don't have to carve away all this steel that you just throw away in chips.
Yeah.
Right.
So you save money on the steel commodity. And then secondly, it's just more efficient. So you mill all of these blades, and then you mill these necks separately, and then you just weld on the one that you want after the fact. CNC milling is all about mass production. The cheaper, the more you make, the cheaper it gets. So it's really, really, really expensive to mill just one of anything. To mill just one putter, you're talking like $1,000, $2,000 to outsource that. It's kind of crazy. And so if you see a putter maker who's actually milling one-offs, it's pretty rare, and that person's probably not making much money.
Yeah, it's a hobby at that point.
Yeah, and so the quickest way to cut some costs out of the equation is to mill a whole batch of the same head, the same blade. Just mill 100 of them, 200 of them, and then mill all these different necks, and then just weld them on after the fact for whoever, and then bend it to whatever lie, angle, whatever somebody wants. It's just a cost-saving mechanism, cost and time, and people think they're all great because that's 30 years ago. It was the sign of a handmade custom that was really only available to a tour pro. Somebody who's on PGA Tour could get a welded neck on something because no one else was doing that. And so they became coveted. Oh my God, it's a tour putter. It's it was handmade for Sebi, whatever.
Yeah.
Fast forward 30 years, and that's not special. That's not special at all. To me, as a putter maker, I look at a weld neck and I think, A, it looks kind of ugly. I mean, you've got this globs of steel all around the edge.
Yeah.
And
all right.
And B, to me it just looks like a cut corner. It's the putter maker wasn't going to take the time to actually mill a one piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's my rant. And there's my dumping all over weld necks.
Well, no, it's relevant information, and I learned a lot from that.
I always feel like it goes back to learning. I feel like we're absorbing a lot of information. Not to get off there.
No, I always thought it was that kind of tour issue thing where you see that weld neck and you think, okay, well, that's that custom aspect. But then now seeing the kind of corner cutting and all that, it's eye opening to that for sure. But
20 years ago, if you saw a weld neck, it was rare. But now, I mean, you go look on Instagram; they're everywhere.
For sure.
Right. Yeah, got to keep pushing the envelope with the technology like you're doing, like you kept saying with 3D printers. Like you're pushing these limits, and you're coming out with really awesome products that are catching a lot of people's eyes. Definitely.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing that we're really into is the laser milling. Like because we're not 3D printing or because we're not CNC milling everything, you know, we don't like we have to look for other ways to do things like fine engravings, face milling, things like that. And we really went deep on laser milling. If you've been following my Instagram for a while, you've seen all of the crazy colored faces and everything. That's all done with laser. None of that's paint. I mean, that's lasered titanium, and
That's awesome.
I mean, we can do certain colors are tougher to do than others, but we can do such amazing, vibrant colors and stuff with that. It's just so damn cool. Did you see that Sweetens Roadside face I posted in my story the other day?
I can't. Do you have a picture of it on hand?
It's on a story. You'll see some posts on it soon because we're going to do a limited run of these. Like the blue from that Sweetens Roadside face, it's like it's so good. It's just so good.
That's great.
How hard is it to get a green out of curiosity with the laser?
Green is impossible.
That's what I've noticed, that there's just never green usually in a lot of like all putters for the most part. Like I never see green, and I've been like looking for like kind of like a metallic green face or at least a metallic green body on the putter.
So here's what's up with that. So when you're lasering metal to change the color of it, you know, when you heat up metal to red hot, it passes through all these different colors. All of the colors that it passes through are the colors that are possible.
Okay.
Right. So when you heat up a piece of metal to red hot, it passes through like purple, blue, magenta, red, yellow, orange, all of those colors, like that end of the spectrum. It never really passes through green. And that's why you can't really hit green. Like what's happening is that the laser is heating up the metal like to an exact amount and then stopping. But you can't really like I've seen people like claim to be really, really good at hitting green, but nah, if they know something I don't know, because it's really, really tough.
Yeah, I had to assume it was going to be hard because I just hadn't really seen it at all, really. And I'm glad that you opened that up for me. So now at least I know why I'm not seeing it.
Right, exactly. You won't keep searching endlessly, you know.
Yeah, at least sure.
Yeah, if you want green, you have to use paint.
Yeah, and that's like one of those things where that laser is 20 times cooler than the paint, if you ask me. So
right.
Yeah, the trick, like the way you'd do it is you'd laser engrave or mill if you're milling. You'd engrave something that would hold paint.
Yeah. So one kind of final question, just to finish out here. We've almost been talking for about 50 minutes, which is it's awesome. I mean, we all learned a lot. I'm sure the viewers are going to learn a ton.
And appreciate all the knowledge and all the time. Yeah, really, again.
For sure. But final question, what do you have planned for the upcoming 2023 year? Is it maybe, I don't know. I mean, well, yeah, you just tell me what you have planned.
So what I've been really working on a lot lately is the new one-piece versions. Yep. So the long-term goal with that is to come up with a lower price product. Okay. Something that's more easily accessible for more people. Like, it's really fun to do what I do. It's awesome to make customs and work with individual clients and do one-off things, but it's not all that scalable. Right. It would be really, really great to come up with some great products that can be sold at a lower price point and still be profitable. And so that's what the goal is with the one pieces, is that they require a whole lot less labor to make. So hopefully once we get them all like dialed in, we'll be able to offer them at a lower price point. And so what I'm thinking of doing is, I mean, we're starting off, actually I have the first one already on our website. I mean, we have the McCoy. Nice. The McCoy is there for anyone to order. I'm trying to keep some things in stock, but also just have it set up so that if you're ready to order a putter, like we can deliver a one piece in a lot. Like a normal project for us takes 3-4 months. Mm-hmm. The one pieces should take like more like 1 month.
Oh, wow.
Okay, there you go.
It should be way faster.
That's great.
And with, just still a lot of custom options, just not quite as many. Just
Yeah.
to sort of just focus things in to make for a more easy to design, easy to manufacture, easy to buy product.
Yeah. I feel like a
Something
custom.
What's that?
Sorry. No, I didn't. Sorry to cut you off. I was just saying a custom putter, or you said a putter with custom options in under a month or a month is an insane turnaround time from getting the design to putting it out or whatever. That's an insane turnaround time.
And that's a high level goal.
Yeah.
If we can long term, that's where I'd really like to be.
That's great.
We're not there yet, but we're getting better. And honestly, the bigger issue for me is not the time, but the price. Like if I can get the price for a custom build down to like $700 or $800, that would open up a much bigger market. I think there's a way larger number of people who would be willing to spend, say, $700 on a putter versus twice that.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
And especially when there's that gap between your putters being here and those Scotties, Bettinardi's being down here. If this is what people are used to and they've spent $300-400, taking that next step to your putter at that single piece is, it is the next step. So
exactly,
it's going to be awesome to see that.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, all right. We had a great time talking to you today.
Yeah,
Likewise.
Yeah. And hopefully we can have you on again in the future, maybe sometime in the beginning of next year, and kind of talk a little bit more about those one-piece putters and all that.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah. I should have definitely more to talk about sometime. Right about that time frame.
Sure. Great.
I'd be glad to. So thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed the conversation, and
yeah,
good luck with the podcast, guys. It's
thank you.
Awesome that you guys are starting it up, and hopefully tapping into a segment of the market that's not well covered by there's plenty of golf podcasts out there.
Yeah.
But hopefully you guys find your niche, like you find your market, your audience, and bring them what they want to hear.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. We love talking to companies like you. Just one real quick thing, like even going back to like the little accessories, like the fried egg ball marker, things like that. I feel like
the fried egg.
Yeah. Just like golf is such a big accessory, kind of thing. All golfers love to have different things in their bag like that. So like you said, we like to talk to guys like you know what I mean, making amazing products. So yeah, it's really awesome.
I think the accessories market is bigger than the putter market.
Yeah, for sure.
At least on at least for the high end makers and like everybody on Instagram. You got to look at somebody like a Tyson Lamb. People complain all the time that he doesn't make putters. Well, why would he? He's making a fortune selling accessories.
Yeah,
That market is huge. Way bigger than I ever really appreciated when I first got into the business. So that's definitely a focus for me, building and growing the business. I'll say this though, it's really challenging coming up with new and cool products. Like anybody can make a ball marker, anybody can make a pitch tool. You got to make something that stands out. And that's really been my focus in that business, is trying to make creative things that you can only make with 3D printing, like the knot necks.
Yeah. Hence the fried egg too.
There you go.
The fried egg is really, really fun.
Awesome. I was gonna say, you make something that catches someone's eye. They see it on social media. You know what I mean? They share it with their friends. It ends up getting a bunch of views. It gets some sort of virality. That's going to boost a bunch of sales. You know what I mean? So I feel like an accessory thing, like you said, is extremely scalable. Yeah.
And it's a much lower price point. So for people who are interested in the brand but don't necessarily want to buy a new putter, it's a much easier way for them to sort of get into that ecosystem and start interacting with, just getting involved with the brand, becoming a client.
Yeah, it's a good gateway, like you said, into the brand, low barrier of entry into the brand to kind of, get used to the quality of your products. And then, that's great.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. But yeah, like you said, or like we said, just wanted to wrap it up and really appreciate your time, all the knowledge that we've gained, and hopefully our viewers have gained as well from this.
Yeah, thanks
this
so much for just explaining a lot of this.
I was going to say, I feel like the next time I go take a putt, I'm going to be thinking about it differently now and knowing all this stuff. So yeah, it's great.
I'll never look at a welded neck the same.
I was going to say, definitely not. Definitely not.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, Al. Thank you for your time again.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Al.
Cheers.
All righty.